Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian and I'm the co-founder and CTO of dcSpark, a crypto ecosystem builder company who's also involved in the Cardano project. In this video, I want to talk about the future of NFTs and what kind of projects to look out for. Now this video is entirely from a technical perspective and it's not financial advice. Notably, I'll talk about an entirely free open source project that dcSpark recently released called Fracada and how I'll be contributing to this vision. And lastly, I'll talk about the Cardano Foundation and how their involvement can make a huge difference and the adoption of Cardano and smart contracts in general. Now, why are people buying NFTs? Well, it's clear people really like the idea of owning things, right? One of the reasons Bitcoin got so popular is because people really like the idea of owning their assets and owning their money. But just like how people were not entirely satisfied with Bitcoin and they wanted utility on top of the assets and therefore created Ethereum and similar projects like Cardano, the same thing looks like it's happening for NFTs as well. So right now, the way people are doing this is by connecting their NFTs to something called the metaverse. And the reason people are doing this is because it's not hard to understand. It's not a technically hard to understand concept. And so it's kind of an easy thing for them to market. Now, we think that actually NFTs can go much further than this. And in fact, some projects have already gone that direction. For example, Audit, which is a project that we're involved with at dcSpark and helping to build, is not a blockchain, but it is using NFTs for IDs on their platforms, with drives utility beyond the image you get from the NFT itself. Now, platforms like Cardano and Ergo and other UTXO platforms have a huge benefit in this, in that NFTs are super easy to use as a crucial role in DeFi applications. And in fact, we have a blog post that explains why that is, and it'll be linked in the description of this YouTube video. Now, with this UTXO model like Cardano, we can have basically DeFi protocols with NFTs associated to them, where the NFT has a special role in the DeFi protocol with inherent value. For example, you can imagine an oracle, and if you run an oracle, you get paid occasionally for your providing a service, which is updating the oracle value. And we can say, okay, you can update the oracle as long as you own a special NFT that gives you the permission to update the oracle. And so now it creates kind of an open ecosystem where anybody can be a oracle operator. And if anybody at some point decides they no longer want to be an oracle operator, they could sell their oracle NFT to somebody else. And then it has inherent value because whoever buys this NFT, as long as they continue operating oracle, will earn profits from their work. And so this is just one example, but there's a huge amount of use cases in DeFi for basically protocols with NFTs associated with them that basically have extra rights and inherent value. Now, this is kind of a grand vision, right? UTXO blockchains like Cardano are fairly new. The Cardano smart contract capability was added only 3 weeks ago. And so we want to kind of kickstart this effort at dcSpark. We think there's a huge potential in this. But Cardano only recently launched smart contracts. Most of the examples for Plutus smart contracts are all provided by IOHK. So we said, okay, to bootstrap this effort, we should help with this NFT vision, and we should make it entirely open source, entirely free, MIT licensed, and put that out there and see what people can build with it. And that's basically what Fracada is. So Fracada is a dApp for Cardano that allows people to have fractionalized NFTs. So for example, in this Oracle situation, you could be an oracle operator, but decide that you don't want to run this oracle yourself. You fractionalize the ownership of your role in the oracle protocol, and then you can sell and manage a fractionalized ownership of your role inside the oracle dApp. And so this is just one example, but you can easily imagine cases where smart contracts are operated and run by NFTs with special permissions, and people can choose to split up NFTs into smaller components, fractional components, and either sell those or hand them out to people that they trust, business partners. And this enables kind of a huge array of use cases for DeFi on UTXO blockchains like Cardano. Now, the thing about Fracada, as I mentioned, although it's entirely open source, entirely free, we developed this at a cost at dcSpark. We don't gain any money from this. But we think, as I mentioned, that this is hugely important to the Cardano ecosystem. And one of the things about doing this kind of free project is that we don't have the money to audit this kind of smart contract. So that's why if you go to the GitHub repository for Fracada, we have a giant warning that says, warning, this is not audited. But we would love to work with the Cardano Foundation to make sure that this does get audited, and this can become kind of a standard for smart contracts. Anybody who needs fractionalized NFTs can look at our code, use our code. And in fact, we've already heard from a lot of projects in the Cardano ecosystem saying they're looking at our code already. They're already trying to integrate ideas from our code into their own projects. And it's clear there's a demand for this kind of open source efforts. Now, for this auditing cost, we won't make this money back if we do it, which is why we'd love to work with the Cardano Foundation for this. One thing that's hugely important for this kind of ecosystem like Cardano is an open repository of examples and known use cases that people can reference when building dApps. And the Cardano Foundation already kind of manages something like this with the Cardano Improvement Proposal. And I'm part of the Cardano Improvement Proposal team. Even though I'm not part of the CF, we have kind of open editors that anybody can join. And I do contribute to that. We also need a kind of similar idea for a repository of contracts that people can reference. And when they're referencing these smart contracts, they know it's well written. They know it's written with best practices in mind, and they know it's audited. Now, other ecosystems have stuff like this. For example, you can look at Zeppelin in the Ethereum ecosystem, and hopefully the Cardano Foundation can step up and take this role in the Cardano ecosystem. But if they can't, somebody will have to play this role. But we didn't want to wait for somebody to do this. We think dcSpark, this is hugely critical for the success of the project. And so we decided to take the step forward and release Fracada and hopefully use this to kind of bootstrap this effort. And so, as I mentioned, this is hugely important for the Cardano ecosystem and blockchain in general, but we can't, continue doing all this for free at dcSpark. So we have to somehow justify the work we're doing. And so if you're watching this video and you think this is useful for your project, or you think this is useful for the ecosystem in general, please, look us up on Twitter, look us up on Discord, on our social media, on Telegram, and so on, and follow our work. And promoting efforts like Fracada will make a huge difference for us to justify us, basically creating more open source smart contracts like this in various ecosystems like Cardano. And we think, together we can truly, make something great. And, part of the reason we started dcSpark was because we truly believe in kind of the vision and the technology. And, and that's why we spent, time and effort on Fracada, and I hope it'll be useful to everybody watching this video. So thank you very much.